Good morning, everyone. Junior Achievement is grateful to all of you for spending your Friday morning with us and supporting us unconditionally during this pandemic. We are also thankful to our Microsoft family for providing us with the virtual tools to host this event. Thank you. We are also indebted to our business leaders and guests who took time off their busy schedules to be here today, and of course, our students, who are the reason why we planned this event. I wanted to highlight a few housekeeping rules before we begin. If you are a town hall business leader or town hall student participant, please leave your cameras turned on, since this event will be recorded and you will take center stage. If you are a guest or special invitee, we humbly ask you to turn your cameras off and mute yourself so that it ensures a higher quality of video recording. Thank you so much. Without further delay, I'm going to pass on the virtual microphone to our moderator, April Jarrett, a dear friend of Junior Achievement, an entrepreneur, and the founder of Beloved Empowers. April, thank you for being here, and the floor is all yours.
Hey, Tanya. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be a part of this amazing event where we are choosing to come together for the purpose of pouring into our future, which are the students who are attending today. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Tanya, I was asked to share my story as an entrepreneur, and um, I've got to tell you, it's a story. It's a story that began about 10 years ago for me, and not the best circumstances. For me, I was kind of pushed into entrepreneurship because I needed some freedom and flexibility. I married a man who was active duty in the military. And so I went from working part-time to not working at all, living in England with two little children. And that wasn't going to work for me. I knew I needed a way to bring income into the family. I needed a way to still use my gifts and my talents in a way that would serve others. And so that is where Beloved Empowers was born. Living in England on a military base, knowing nothing about business, nothing about networking, collaborating, finances, the whole nine. And so for the last 10 years, I have founded a nonprofit organization, and I've also started my own LLC. But that came from having to learn a whole lot of lessons. There were things I had to learn that I didn't even know I needed to learn when I started this process and this journey. But the freedom and the flexibility that it gives me to use what I have, what I say are my God-given gifts and talents, to pour into others, is what continues to push me to build this business, build this nonprofit in a way where I'm leaving impact and legacy. And so I want to encourage all of you young people who are looking to be entrepreneurs. It is a challenge, it is a path, but it's the best one you'll ever take, because you're either going to be building someone else's dream or you're going to be building your own. I chose to build my own. There's nothing wrong with working for other people and helping to come alongside and build their dreams. I did that for a time, but now it's time for me to build my own. And so that's what Beloved Empowers is all about. Is for me, it's a faith-based organization, and I pour into women. I teach very practical ways and systems of implementing faith into your daily life, and that's what Beloved Empowers is all about. So that's my entrepreneur story. I cannot wait to hear from the panelists today. I'm going to take a couple of minutes now to introduce you one by one. As I introduce you, would you please just take the time to share with us your story? And I'm going to start with Mr. Elijah Williams. Elijah, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Good to be with you guys. My name is Elijah Williams. I currently serve as the executive director of the Energy Corridor District. And so the Energy Corridor District it's actually one of the major business hubs here in the city of Houston. We house multinational energy firms, including Shell, ConocoPhillips, BP, McDermott, and other such places. Part of my job as in terms of running the energy corridor is quite frankly working to be an advocate, creating leadership for the district, and ultimately helping to create an environment so that the district can maintain its long-term viability. And so what that simply means is I'm working to ensure that the district has sustainable infrastructure by partnering with the City of Houston, Harris County, working on various economic development type projects to bring different types of businesses to the district, or working with the businesses that do exist here, either to maintain those jobs or convince people to locate here or develop the district in other aspects. So quite a fun job. I have been in this role for the last year, and quite frankly, it is has been a journey to get here. For me, I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, 7th Ward of New Orleans, Louisiana, was raised by a single parent. I'm the oldest of 3 kids. Didn't really have a relationship with my father, and I always jokingly tell people, I don't know if we were sort of poor, lower middle class, or, somewhere in between that. And quite frankly, sometimes I think it depended on the day or the month or the year in terms of where we fell in that. But, nonetheless, for me, I think my childhood experiences have had just as much of an impact on me in terms of versus the things that I've been able to accomplish sort of in my adulthood. And so what I mean by that is I think all of those experiences of, growing up in a single parent household where, on occasion we lacked resources and my mom had to make sacrifices, whether it was, helping her feed my brother and sisters or keeping the lights on, things like that, or me having to sacrifice I love basketball and had to turn a milk cart into a basketball goal until, my mom could save to get a basketball goal for me, a real one. Whether it was sort of my grandmother teaching me the value of hard work, cutting grass, washing her car, the fact that she would pay me for those types of things, whether or not for me to go to the little elementary school that I went to. It was actually a Black Catholic elementary school that was tucked behind the St. Bernard housing project. So it wasn't your typical elementary school. But the point is, those experiences, I think, have shaped me and quite frankly have had a major impact on me in terms of my adult life. That young man then, in those experiences that I had then, for me, what was important was, or what I always kept my mind focused on was, how do I get to the next stage in life? What was important to me as I got older? And that always revolved around doing better than what I had in my younger years. And that has come with lots of challenge, lots of struggle, but a lot of good all at the same time. I've had some awesome opportunities in life, including this one, to sit as quite frankly, a young Black man in the position that I'm in, to influence the things that I influence, to have worked for the country's first African-American president as a presidential appointee, to have worked for NASA, literally walking the halls of Congress, advocating for the agency in terms of interacting with senators and US congressmen and governors. Whether it was me starting my own business, I actually took a journey here in the last previous couple of years, starting a consulting firm that, I will be honest, for me, I decided entrepreneurship wasn't right for me on a full-time basis. I completely agree that I think entrepreneurship is a path and I strongly encourage it, but for me, it wasn't the right opportunity. And so anyhow, I'll close by saying, I think, throughout all of those struggles and throughout all those opportunities, I think what was important for me is, despite how people may have treated me, whether they looked over me whether they were shocked to see me when I walked through a door, and didn't expect me to look like I looked, didn't expect me to be in a position that I may have been in, whether or not they chose not to support me, either in my entrepreneurial journey or through a work journey. I always thought it was important to, stay true to who I was, to know that I was enough, to know that those life experiences of struggle and sacrifice, the hard work and the grit that it taught me, built character. It built experiences. It built endurance, and those were all characteristics and qualities that I needed in every aspect of my life as I go forward. And so, just really quickly, I always like to share with people, just sort of randomly. I like dogs, have dogs. My dogs love squirrels, and squirrels love oak trees. And so, some years ago, I didn't know that, quite frankly, an acorn can sprout an oak tree. Within that acorn, there is a seed that, if nourished correctly, can grow into one of the strongest trees that exist, and that's an oak tree. And so, for me, I always take that analogy and apply it to my life, and apply it to all of my life experiences and to the things that I've gone through, the things that I've had to endure, and come back to the reminder that that seed represents me. That seed represents my ability to grow into the person that I have grown into, to the person that I will continue to grow into, and to always know that, again, I'm enough, that those perspectives, those qualities, those experiences are things I can hold on to as I continue to walk through this journey in life. So I encourage you to do the same. Look forward to talking to each of you as we continue the town hall.
Thank you, Elijah, so much. You dropped some wisdom and some nuggets there. And I love your analogy of the acorn. That's one that I'm going to walk away with today, that there's an oak tree in the acorn, given the time and the environment to grow. So thank you so much for that. All right, so coming up next, we have Miss Valerie Madison, the Community Development Specialist for Microsoft Houston Region and Vice Chair of the Blacks at Microsoft Houston. Valerie, would you please do a better job than I did at introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about your story?
Yes, I would first like to thank y'all for joining us this afternoon. I think it's really great as young people that you're having interest in this and also attending events as such. I'm very glad to be here, so thanks for having me. I started my journey off at Texas Southern University. It's a historically Black college university here in Houston, so y'all should know about that school, but I did want to mention that because that created a lot of the foundation that I have and success that I've been able to acquire through my role here at Microsoft. I'm currently the community development specialist, and what that entails is me creating partnerships to help a small business owner or a school or a nonprofit to be able to benefit from the resources that we have at Microsoft. Some may not be able to afford any of those, or they may not have exposure to it. So me being able to partner with such organizations that may not have the resources is my passion. I truly love community, and aligning that with such a great company like Microsoft is amazing. And what we make proud to do is to empower every organization. So it's not just selling devices or technology, it's truly empowering people to be more wise on technology, to have what they need to succeed for their business, whether it's our startup program or the classes that we have to teach them on programs like Teams or Planner or any of the products that can help make them more efficient. And so working with groups like Junior Achievement is something that we do a lot. And I'm the catalyst for a lot of those conversations and partnerships. And what I'm most proud of being able to do is to do that with communities of color. Sometimes they may not know that we have all of this going on to where they're not able to benefit or to be able to propel forward. And so I make that my mission to be able to do that within my role. And being a part of Blacks at Microsoft, it's an employee resource group. And I love that just because I've only been with Microsoft for a year. So I'm excited that I've been able to do that, but I'm just so engaged in doing things. But beyond that, having that role with the organization Blacks at Microsoft allows Microsoft to let the Black employees to be able to have that voice, as well as reach out to other groups that look like us to know of those opportunities, to help them have a seat at the table, to know what goes on within these major companies such as Microsoft. So it allows us to not only relate to one another, sometimes we have venting sessions, sometimes it's been frustrating, especially, with the social injustices that's just being raised to the forefront right now. And as a business owner, you want to be able to have a place or a company that cares about you because you spend your money with them. But then also, like he mentioned, Elijah mentioned, not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, or that's not right or fitting for them. But you want to work with a company to where you can grow and have an effect on people that want to have their dreams come true in that light. So I think there's a place for everyone of what they're good at, whether it's working with different businesses. And I love that I get to do that. My passion is community. My passion is setting up events, but then I get to work with those entrepreneurs and work with those people of color to help them have those things happen. And Microsoft supports that. So really happy to be here. That's a little bit more about me. I love my nonprofits. I have an organization at Texas Southern called Her Tea Issues. So it's to empower girls to become their best self. So aligning them with mentors and helping them get ready for professional life after college is something that that's very passionate and important to me, as well as Ladies Love is a professional organization for older women after they graduate college, and some older ladies, but just like a social networking group. So that's something I'm extremely passionate about. I love hanging out with people. So as you can tell, COVID has stressed me out a little bit because I don't get to be around people as much. But I do love being creative with having experiences just to make life better for people. So really happy to be here. And that's a little bit about me. So yeah, I'll go back to you, Ms. April.
Thank you, Valerie, so much. I just love how you were able to take your passion, put it in such a huge organization like Microsoft to benefit not just yourself, but others who look like you and are coming up behind you. I just absolutely love that. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so up next, Curtis Franklin, Black Employees Network sponsor at Phillips 66 and manager. Curtis, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story? Uh-oh, we may be having a little bit of technical difficulty.
Oh, the technical difficulty was me not taking it off mute.
There we go. All right. Thank you, Mr. Curtis. All right, go on. I'm going to pass it over to you. Tell us a little bit about your story. Thank you so much.
Oh, sure. Yes, I helped sponsor the Black Employee Network group. Brenda Brinson co-chairs that with me. And we have two young graduates from Howard University who are really taking the lead as far as the steering committee goes. And Brooke Bobbitt, and then she's doing a lot of work together. And so when I think about my role initially, right now, I work at Phillips 66, of course. I'm the manager of the rail fleet, which is 10,500 cars, all different types of rail cars that handle a full array of petroleum products, anywhere from crude to Coke, petrol and LPG. So basically, you just get the appropriate size car to move that product and do all of the fleet sizing and optimization so that you're running efficiently, not carrying too many cars, not carrying too few, and then looking for sublease opportunities. You always want to raise revenue to make sure that you're doing the right thing for the company. And so you have to keep up with regulatory compliance. That is really critical, from the Department of Transportation, the Federal Railroad Association, things of that nature. But the journey, I'm a lot like Valerie. I graduated from Texas Southern University, and really Texas Southern got me going because my father actually had a class with a gentleman who was named Ray Wilson, who's passed on, who was over human resources. And he had just offered me a job when I was 18, since at that time, Conoco Phillips 66, they were paying for 90% of your schooling. And so I would work in the day and go to school at night. So just from that connection of Texas Southern between my father and Ray Wilson, I got an opportunity to work here. And then the other good thing, you think about always having those connections and working it. At that time, If you're familiar with the Progressive Amateur Boxing Association in the heart of Third Ward, right across from Emancipation Park, I participated with Reverend Ray Martin in that program. And so you think about all of the opportunities and the discipline that you learn from boxing, never giving up and the things like that. So I always remember my coach. I remember being in someone from Louisiana. No problem with that, Elijah. I was born in Opelousas, but he was throwing bows at me, and I bowled him back. And of course, I got called for it. So I bowled him again when he bowled me, and I got disqualified. And I always remember Reverend Ray telling me, "You can't win the fight if you're not in the fight." So I've learned to just stay disciplined and not overreact to certain things. And you need to take that anger and do something constructive with it. So learn not to overreact. So if you get hit with a good punch, just move around and then come back with a combination. But you can't telegraph how you're feeling. So there are a lot of things you learn from those organizations you grow up in. And so once I start working at ConocoPhillips, I started giving back to that organization, and giving back in the sense that we would always, every year, would have the engineers build bikes and things for that community, and I'd always match the company funds giving to them. And just recently at Texas Southern, I've also started a scholarship in my name for the transportation group, since I did transportation. So those are the things that I would take with it. You have to give back to the community, and you learn so much. In fact, Reverend Ray Martin, there's a guy named Bud Johnson, if you're familiar with the Forward Time, he had a paper called Main Event. He gave me my own column called Between Rounds. I've had several communication jobs here because of that experience I had early on at the Progressive Amateur Boxing Association. So stay connected with your community. That's the one thing you should do. Last, I like to say there was a group called African Americans Coming Together that was in Clear Lake. I got the opportunity to speak at NASA, mainly because of the things I learned, believe it or not, at Texas Southern and at the Boxing Center. Reverend Ray would always play in the month of January Dr. King's speeches, so I knew them in and out. The association, so the Nation of Islam was around the corner, so we'd hear Malcolm X, he played that over the loudspeaker. So you have that sense of community and the sense of wanting to give back. So those are things that I would take with you. The one thing as far as becoming an entrepreneur, I've been in the corporate life here, same company, ConocoPhillips, Phillips 66 for 4 decades. And so I've always kept that idea. You can progress. So you go from the mailroom to now I'm running and managing that entire fleet of 10,000 cars. And I used to file tariffs and report to those gentlemen back in the day. So stay in the fight. I had an opportunity to be a district manager for all of the Houston stores back when we were heavily engaged in our own retail chains before we went into the jobber network. And doing that, if you grow up young and you're an individual contributor, you learn to make sure that you do the best that you can on that job. That's all you can do. Do the best you can on the job you have. And then once you do that, you're used to carrying your own weight. Well, when you become a supervisor, the one thing that happens, your mindset is, I got to do everything. And so I always would have coaching, he does not know how to delegate. And I always had that because I'm thinking, hey, if I'm going to fail, I'm going to make sure I have something to do with that failure. If I'm going to succeed, I want something to do with it. But once I became a district manager, I had a stores in Conroe, a truck stop, a store in Brookshire, had a store out in Conroe. And so you could not be every place at every time. And so I had to learn to work through people and work with people and develop that trust. And creating an environment where everybody succeeds. So it is having that sense of vulnerability and learning to work through people as an entrepreneur. That's how you're going to be successful. So you can't think about doing it all. You got to learn how to work with people and to be able to be a good team and empower them to do a good job on your behalf. It's all interconnected. Well, really, that's all I have. That should be enough about me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Curtis. You dropped some knowledge as well. I know everyone will by the end of this, but stay connected to your community. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. Stay connected to your community. I'm going to move on to our next panelist, Mr. Marcus Davis, entrepreneur, founder of the Breakfast Club. Need I say more? Mr. Davis, would you please tell us a little bit about your story?
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank y'all for inviting me on, and more importantly, to those that are members of JA that are participating, thank you for your interest in bettering yourselves and building community. I too am a proud product of Texas Southern University. I heard a couple of folks on here that are TSU Tigers, go Tigers. And I am a proud father of a Howard grad. I heard a program that's using Howard University. And a little something extra, Curtis. I went to Cashmere High School where Miss Martin was one of my teachers. And so I had I didn't have the privilege of working with Reverend Ray, but I did have the privilege of working with Miss Martin, who was just as fierce and as feisty, especially as a teacher. So I'm excited to be here this morning and share with you my story. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a restaurateur. Our flagship is the Breakfast Club, located on the corner of Travis and Alabama in Midtown Houston. I currently have in my stewardship a number of concepts. We started with the Breakfast Club, and then we, a few years later, acquired a long-standing institution in the community, which was the Reggae Hut. And from there, we launched another concept to fill a void in the marketplace, the Alley Cat Bar and Lounge. And subsequently, we opened 2 locations in the airport of the Breakfast Club, Terminal A North and A South. And 2 years ago, we launched a concept in downtown Houston called Culture, an urban comfort kitchen. Now, currently during the pandemic, only 2 of our stores are in operation, the Breakfast Club and the Reggae Hut. But I share with you how we grew from a single mom and pop shop to a burgeoning hospitality company. And so the origin of that is about 20 years ago, I had an idea, I had a dream. I believe entrepreneurship, the definition of entrepreneurship is filling a void in the marketplace, a void that the marketplace is calling for consciously or subconsciously. I'll say that again. Entrepreneurship is about filling a void in the marketplace, a void that the marketplace is calling for consciously or subconsciously. Sometimes the marketplace knows what it wants. Sometimes it's up to the entrepreneur to listen and to create what the marketplace is calling for. And so 20 years ago, I had an idea that the marketplace was calling for a breakfast restaurant that focused on Southern home style breakfasts, the kind that grandma used to make. I had an idea that we wanted a different type of environment, restaurant environment to eat in versus the traditional cafeteria style restaurant, which was the typical style for African Americans and the soul food concept. Also had an idea that the marketplace wanted a little something different in terms of what was being offered. Catfish and grits, chicken and waffles, those things weren't being offered, though you can find them in a number of places on a number of menus today. In 1999, when I first started working on my business plan, they weren't on the menu in any restaurant in the city of Houston. 2001, when we opened, you couldn't find those 2 dishes on anyone's menu in the city of Houston. Now it is a commonplace to find chicken and waffles, shrimp and grits, or fish and grits on someone's brunch menu. But in 2001, we filled that void in the city of Houston. And I found out not just in the city of Houston, as people flocked towards Houston and visited the Breakfast Club, I found out that we had filled a void in the African American community across the nation in terms of what we had created. Also, I know that here's a little nugget on entrepreneurship, again, filling that void. The Breakfast Club is a coffee shop. One of our slogans is the coffee shop that happens to serve great food. And the void that we filled in 2001 was coffee shops. While you guys in JA may not know this, it's commonplace today. But in 1999, in 2000, 2001, coffee shops were new. It was a big deal, right? You guys were born in the era where people agree to pay $4 or $5 for a cup of coffee. in the year 2001, it was a stretch to do such a thing. And so Starbucks wasn't on every corner. Uh, so our goal was to fill the void of coffee shops that have food and restaurants that have great coffee. So just a little nugget on identify. And to this day, I challenge you. You can't find any restaurant in the city of Houston that serves caramel macchiatos and fried pork chops for breakfast. If you find one, let me know. I'm gonna go see them. But nonetheless, 2001, 99 came up with this idea. I did something what I call breathing life into your dream, which was I took a pen and paper and I began to write it down. I began to put a plan together, which is known as a business plan. Um, it's one thing to have an idea, it's another thing to have an idea that you put into action. It's one thing to have a dream, it's another thing to put that dream into action. I believe sitting down and writing it out is part of the process of breathing life into your dream. And after about 18 months of working hard to try to get the restaurant open, finally 2001, we launched the Breakfast Club on the corner of Travis and Alabama. We went from, I remember the first article that was written about us, it's called us a shoestring operation. And on some level, I was offended by it, and I looked around. I was like, "No, there's a lot to be said about what they said." They applauded us, but nonetheless, we grew from that shoestring operation to being a longstanding community institution today. Along that path, we have been recognized by the Houston Chronicle, by the Houston Press, for several years, best breakfast in the city, and then we moved from there to being recognized statewide as one of the best breakfast restaurants in the state of Texas, and then we moved from there to being uh, known as one of the top breakfast restaurants in the city. I'm sorry, in the nation, being featured in places like USA Today, Forbes, Esquire, and got the big call from Good Morning America for being one of the top 5 breakfast restaurants in the nation. Now, here's a little something that Jay, you may not get, you may not understand. Yes, people know us for our volume of business, having a line around the corner, out the door, down the street. And I just want to, brag a little bit. We did all of that pre-Instagram. I don't know if y'all know. I don't know if y'all remember, when that era existed, but we did that before there was a such thing as Facebook, before there was a such thing as Instagram, before there was such thing. The most advanced technology we had was email back then. And so your marketing game had to be strong, but your marketing game was really what we call guerrilla marketing, which is getting out in the street, going door to door, knocking on doors. And so that's how I spent my first couple of years in business, going door to door, knocking on doors, introducing myself as a business owner in the community, inviting people to come in and share with us. And even though we participate in the tech era today, I still hold on to those old school tactics. I heard someone earlier mention I miss the days where we can sit and have cake and coffee in front of one another. There's something valuable about technology, but there's also something valuable about the fundamentals, which is building relationships, connecting with folks, establishing trust, and establishing the desire to work on one accord. So we've been here 20 years. Next year we'll make 20 years in business, and I'm proud to say that next year we would have been on the corner of Travis and Alabama, inspiring entrepreneurship, because that is our goal, that is our agenda, that is our mission, that is our purpose, to build community. We're about the business of building community, and I believe one of the key ways of building community is to inspire entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are we hear it all the time, we say it all the time. I don't know if we truly believe it as a nation, but nonetheless, it is true. Small businesses are the backbone of this nation. And just as small businesses are the backbone of the nation, they're also the backbone of each and every community. So as you build your small businesses and you strengthen those small businesses, you then strengthen your community.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Davis. I'm gonna try.
Was I on mute the whole time? No, I'm just kidding.
No, no, we heard it all, and thank God we heard it all, because you gave us a definition of entrepreneurship. I'm gonna try to repeat it, but if I mess it up, unmute and fix me. But you said entrepreneurship is filling a void in the marketplace, consciously or subconsciously heard. Did I get that right?
Yes,
Awesome.
that the marketplace is calling for consciously or subconsciously.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. All right. We've got Mr. Mewael Ghebremichael, Chief Production Officer at NRL Mortgage, also board member of Junior Achievement. Mewael, would you please come on and share a little bit about your story? Tell us about yourself.
Absolutely. First off, good morning. Super excited to be a part of this conversation. Real quick, April, it's been a long time. Just want to say hi virtually. And Shani, I think you're on here. Hi, it's been a long time. So real quick, I just want to give you guys my story. My story is very much a story of who you know, not necessarily what you know. I started in the mortgage industry in 2003. I didn't know anything about the mortgage industry. Most folks who get into the mortgage banking industry, they stumble upon it. There's no degree or no path that says, hey, you go down this path, you'll get in the mortgage industry. A friend of mine started at working at a subprime mortgage bank, which back then was the cool thing to do, but later on it became a tainted name. But I was graduating college, and he showed me his paycheck actually, and it said $12,000, and I was 22, 23 years old. I was in shock. $12,000 even today is a lot of money. So that kind of started my kind of engines rolling or my mind thinking, and ended up moving back to Houston. I'm a UT alum, so I know got a lot of love for the HBCUs, but we still bleed orange around here. Anyway, so I moved back to Houston, which I guess if I take a step back, I was born and raised in Houston. I went to Bel Air High School, and from there I went to University of Texas. So anyways, moved back to Houston. He ended up helping me get a job, an interview, and then I ended up securing the position and started off as a loan officer, very at the bottom end of the pole. Started understanding and doing loans. And there was some good months, some bad months, but it was very much, you eat what you kill, so to speak. So you really had to really grind and put in the effort. But through that, what it did help me, understand how to navigate relationships and help to build a customer base. And through that, I met a couple of people through the mortgage industry, and so we'll come back. And so for me, because someone gave me an opportunity, I did the same, and I tried to extend as many opportunities that I could to any of my friends. I was at University of Texas. I was a part of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, probably the best fraternity that's out there. So if any of you kids go to college, make sure you, especially all the men, make sure you look at Kappa Alpha Psi. So anyhow, I try to use my relationship skills to bring folks along. Through that, the credit crisis happened, got laid off, started scratching my head, didn't understand, kind of had to scramble and figure out what to do. At the time I was living in Seattle, and I had risen through the ranks as a loan officer and became a manager, and ended up taking the opportunity in Seattle. That's where I ended up meeting my wife at the time. At the time, she was my girlfriend. So ended up moving back to Houston. A buddy of mine and myself, what we did was we started a franchise. So the way the mortgage banking world works, there's a way to kind of get a branch opportunity. So just think of a franchisee, if you will. So think of, there's McDonald's as a corporate office, but then there's each individual McDonald's are independently owned. So we ended up getting a franchise and building our footprint out in Houston, and we did pretty well. We started to recruit and interview folks, and ended up growing, and we were doing about 100 loans a month, which is a big deal, especially during the time where it was a lot of uncertainty, and the credit crisis was still kind of really in the fold. And then in about 2011, there were some changes in the mortgage industry. So as some of you may have heard of, the Dodd-Frank or CFPB, and so some things did change, and it got my mind thinking. And through all this entrepreneurship kept kind of in my head, just kind of saying, hey, you know what, there's more out there. And so for me was, instead of being a franchisee, I wanted to actually be the bank. So a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, consider him like a brother, and is actually Courtney Izwike's husband. Him and I talked, and he ended up putting me in contact with a private equity company, which is the company that he was working with. And through about 5 or 6 months of negotiations, we ended up acquiring a mortgage bank, which was called or is called NRL Mortgage. They're a small bank here in Houston. They had started in 2007, and I knew the previous owner from my subprime days, I guess pre-credit crisis. So we took that, and so in May of 2012, the private equity company held the majority ownership, and then myself and 2 others held the minority ownership. So the 4 of us were partners. And at that time, we broke out into our respective departments. And so today I'm the chief production officer, so over sales and production. But at the time when we first started, I was actually over operations, so processing, underwriting, closing, et cetera. And so that was really challenging times. There was no booklet on how to become an executive overnight. So on Friday, I was a branch manager, and then on Monday, all of a sudden, I'm a C-suite executive. I'm an entrepreneur. I have to figure out how all this works. So some of the entrepreneurial pieces were already there, because as a franchise owner, so to speak, I was able to kind of understand and how to operate off of a profit and loss or a P&L statement. But the bigger picture was how to really grow a company from the ground up. And so we took that in 2012. NRL was licensed in 1 state. We were doing about 100 to 50, 100, maybe call it 200 loans per month in 2012. And through that, we ended up getting more licenses across the state or across the nation. And today we do about 10 to 12,000 transactions a year. So it's been a huge growth that has happened. And I think through all of that, what I've learned is understanding how important relationships are, how important it is to really network with folks, and then you take that and try to help others. I think in the mortgage banking world, I have a unique kind of role or responsibility where I have an opportunity to help folks get a home. And getting a home, if you've read anything, is probably the single most important thing in building wealth. And so in any way that I can, been able to try to help as many folks as possible. There's down payment assistance programs, FHA programs, conventional programs, et cetera, where we've been able to really assist a lot of folks here in the Houston area. And then in 2017, I guess I mentioned I was in the operations world. I shifted over to the sales and production world. And that was, for me, probably the best thing that happened to me, because it kind of highlighted probably my strengths, and which was that relationship building skill. So I took that and ran with it. And then in 2019, we ended up having an opportunity in buying out the private equity company. And so today it's the minority ownerships that was before it. Now it's just myself and 2 others. So it's been a great run. Today, we've won top workplace in the Houston Chronicle 5 times since 2013. So it's been a great run. And so that's really my story. I'll say that I'm a son of an immigrant. My father came here with probably about $50 in his back pocket, and started off working as a mechanic, as a bus boy, anything he could do. He ended up going to school and ended up becoming a pharmacist. My mom, same thing. She was just at the very bottom, didn't know English, had to understand how this world works. and she ended up going to school. My father actually went to TSU for pharmacy school. So that's why I mentioned I got a lot of love for the HBCUs, especially TSU. And my mother ended up becoming an accountant. And so that's my story. It's been a unbelievable run. But I think that through all this, you'll, really leaning on, especially or making relationships and it's not necessarily always just what you know, because that is super important, and you got to go to school and get smart. But at the same time, who you know and making relationships is very fundamental in growing the business. So I'll pass it back.
Oh, thank you, Mewael. Thank you so much. And hey, it's been a long time. The importance of community and relationships, you painted the most beautiful picture of how that can be effective and productive in growing in your career. So thank you so much for that, Mewael. All right, so we are moving on to Nashon Mitchell. She is a dear, dear, very long time friend of mine, who is also the Executive Director, Business, Risk, and Controls for USAA. Nashon, come on, tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself much better than I did, please.
Hi, everyone. Hey, April, and hey, Mewael. Can you guys hear me? Just to make sure.
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Awesome. Okay. I'm connected on my phone and the computer, so I wasn't sure which mic was picking up. But, I'm just so humbled by all of the stories that have been shared. And I feel, I'm like, what do I say after everyone has dropped so much wisdom on us today? But as April said, I am the Executive Director for Business Risk and Controls at USAA. That's mainly based in the Chief Financial Office within USAA. And for those of you that don't know about USAA, they are not only a bank, but they are also an insurance company. So they provide auto insurance as well as life insurance. So we have a lot going on, and I have to know a lot about a lot. So it's like, most of the time when I started my career, they said as an auditor, you have to know a lot about a little. But now that I've gone into USAA, that's changed greatly. But I'll start with my story, just a little bit about me. I am native San Antonio, born and raised here. Mostly been here most of my life. I grew up mostly on the northwest side of San Antonio, but my family was deep rooted on the west side. So I had, starting off, double life. I was mostly always the only Black kid in all my classes because I went to predominantly white schools. So I had to learn this double life when I was on the west side. I had to be, and you all called me this earlier, I had to be Shawnee. And then when I was at school during the week, my name is Nashon. So I started I was the walking contradiction in my family. I listened to this podcast the other week and it's called Walking Contradiction. And I was like, yes, that is me. I've always been that girl. And so I've just persevered through it. It's always been normal for me to be the only Black person in a room. And I just have pushed through it. And when I was with my family, they were like, oh, you're so proper. And then when I was at school, they were like, you don't talk like us. So learned to just persevere through it and just continue working and just said, I'm going to be the best person I can be. No one else in my family had been to college. So when I got to high school, I had an opportunity to go to a school called Business Careers. And it was a magnet school within the Northside School District here in San Antonio. So I applied, I got accepted, and only 200 kids or so in the district got accepted into the school. It was a huge privilege. My family was like, what are you doing? What is the purpose? No one could talk me through it. But the good thing about that school was that they had a mentorship program. So my mentor was an accountant. We talked, we had lunch once a month. He would bring me lunch, which was not common because I was in a free lunch program at school. So when he would bring me lunch, he'd ask me what I want. Oh, I would go ham. I would like Whataburger, Chick-fil-A, whatever he could bring me because nobody else was buying me that stuff. So, but he would talk to me just about his career and what he was doing. It was an older white gentleman. I didn't know any pretty much older white gentlemen besides the people my mom worked for because she was a domestic worker and took care of elderly people. So it was a different relationship that I had to learn to establish and know how to talk to my mentor. But it was really good to awaken that relationship. Mewael spoke to it, and it's about who you know. And he awakened a lot within me. And so then there was an opportunity to apply to a magnet school within a magnet school, and it was called the Academy of Finance. And through that Academy of Finance, that really put me into the world more so into not only knowing accounting, but knowing finance. And that's where I got involved with junior achievement, which I love junior achievement. I continue to participate in the finance part. I don't have time to do the JA in a day or any of the classroom activities that I wish I did, but I think that they're great programs, set huge foundations for me. And so I went on to get my accounting degree, UTSA, here in San Antonio, and I got my master's, a general MBA, and I began my journey in accounting and an audit. I became an auditor, internal audit, which is different. I thought through school, they don't talk to you about internal audit. And I just stumbled upon internal audit, which I found this huge passion for, because you are working within corporations and I'm nosy, right? I'm a nosy person by nature. So I like to go and ask people, what are you doing? What's your job? Why do you do what you do? And I found that this is the job for me. So I just go and I talk to people. I build those relationships. I establish a trust, and they open up to me. And then I say, why do you do what you do? And some people will say, I don't know. Somebody else told me to do this. And I said, well, do you realize that what you're doing, this could happen? Because I also have this devious nature in my mind called professional skepticism. So if they are booking, so in accounting world, if you're going to book a journal entry, I said, well, can you book that entry and can you approve the entry? Because that way, and they're like, well, yeah, I can. Well, what prevents you from committing fraud? But just because I'm a good person. But what happens when you have that other person in a job where they're not a good person? Well, can you stop it? Can they wire out $2 million and nobody will notice it? And so that's my job every day. I'm just figuring out what is the risk of the job, operationally, compliance related. And I go through and I help people put controls into place to make sure that we mitigate any operational loss, compliance loss, regs, fines from the regulators every day. And so love it. I have a huge passion for what I do. I meet a lot of people. In our CFO organization, we have about 1,000 people that I work with day to day, but then also several relationships across the organization, which USAA has about 35,000 employees. So huge exposure. And but even within that, USAA, and I think it's a question later, so I won't go too hard in it, but USAA is huge on diversity and inclusion. So we have a local peak organization, diversity and inclusion group. So I'm involved in that, which they help raise awareness to African American culture within the organization. And then I'm also sit on the board for the San Antonio Area African American Community Fund here in San Antonio, where we are a nonprofit, but what we do is we raise money and we help do large fundraising events so that we can provide grants for other nonprofits within the city that are doing great things in the community where they're not able to apply for grants, large grants, and get large money. We stand in the gap and say, okay, we'll apply, we'll get large money, we'll raise large money, and then we will provide grants to those starter nonprofit people, like semi mom and pop nonprofits where they're just starting. They don't have profit and loss statements. They're unable to submit that grant paperwork. So that's a little bit about me, but I'm looking forward to talking to you guys more about some of these great questions you guys have.
Thank you, Nashon. Thank you so much for sharing with us your very early beginnings of this path that you've been on for a very long time. All right, so last but definitely not least, we are gonna move on to our last panelist to be introduced, which is Miss Paula Harris. Miss Harris, energy executive, STEM advocate, ESG sustainability leader, and former global director for Schlumberger. Did I get that right, Miss Harris? Take it over.
Schlumberger.
Thank you
so much, April. I am going to start first by saying each of your stories were just absolutely phenomenal. And I'm really excited for the students who are sacrificing their time. And you've heard a theme, through these talks about sacrifice, go the extra mile, work harder. And so just you simply being here and listening and hearing things and learning and being, just motivated by the speakers that have gone before me, I'm excited for you and excited for myself because I definitely have gained a lot this morning here on a Friday morning without, the expectation that I would get this type of information. I am Paula McCann Harris. I I'm from Sunnyside, Houston. I grew up in Sunnyside on the south side of Houston. And I graduated from school out in Katy and matriculated on to Texas A&M University. Did not really want to go to Texas A&M University. I just knew I was smart in math. I was good in math. And so I said, well, maybe I'll do accounting. Maybe I'll do fashion design. And my dad read, I tell this story all the time. My dad, back long time ago, before all of our news was on our phones, we would get the Sunday newspaper. And I think it was the Post or the Chronicle. Houston was a two-paper city back then, would say who has the largest salaries, who's getting the most salaries, and it was petroleum engineering. So my dad said, Paula, he was an HPD officer, my mom worked for the post office. No one had been in corporate. He said, Paula, I will you can go wherever you want. I wanted to go to Spelman. You can go to school wherever you want to go to school. I'm going to pay for a petroleum engineering degree from Texas A&M because they have the #1 petroleum engineering department. And so him, without even knowing what engineers do, me, without having a clue what engineers did, had not been on these type of calls, had not had a mentor in high school, I thought that was fabulous how an accountant came to your school with Chick-fil-A and told you about. I had none of that. I had no clue with engineers. I packed up and went off to Texas A&M, which is a very traditional place, which is a big old South place, which is very male dominated, the core, and found my way through Texas A&M University. After, and I was never the smartest kid. I was a smart girl, but I was never just the straight A, I didn't summa cum laude, nothing. I just fought my way, just worked hard. I was the second Black female to graduate in petroleum engineering from the university, and so 99% of the kids were white males, and so I wasn't in a lot of study groups. I didn't get to network or wasn't invited to the test taking stuff, and I learned a lot from that, and I have developed a skill or a muscle because of that, not recognizing at the time, but graduated from Texas A&M and went to work for Schlumberger, and this is in 1987. Marcus talked about before Instagram. This is almost before computers, right? In 1987, and I just finished a fabulous 33-year career. I just retired last month with Schlumberger. And I will tell you, working with Schlumberger, my first job was in Houma, Louisiana. I heard somebody talk about Opelousas. Houma, Louisiana. They didn't like me and I didn't like them. So I'm so excited about my question later and mistakes that I've made and people, and how I handle situations. Worked offshore, worked on land, got my first job in sales because I worked 14 and 7 offshore. So, and I wasn't crazy about, it was okay. You look back, it's like, oh, that was the most fun thing. It's kind of like pledging a sorority. Someone talked about, I pledged at A&M. We started the AKs at A&M. And when you look back, you're like, oh, pledging, that was so much fun. But while you're going through it, while you're working offshore, 14 and 7, the only female 99.9% of the time, the only African-American 100% of the time almost, out on these offshore rigs, it builds you, it makes you define, it makes you understand who you are, whose you are. It makes you have faith. It makes you see people for who they are. And so I, on my days off, I would go to Conoco or Phillips 66 or Exxon and do sales calls. And so after 7 long years in the field, and we don't do 7 years because kids wouldn't stay 7 years. People used to retire working offshore. Now it's a 2 to 3 year development program, but 7 years working out in the field, I was promoted to sales. And a lot of people were like, man, she's not the smartest engineer. It must be because she's a woman. It must be because she's Black. But what they didn't see on my 7 days off, while they were with their wives and kids, I was single still at the time, I would go put on a suit and go to Exxon, Chevron, and I would go do sales calls with the sales engineers. So guess what? they know me. They know how I talk to people. They know I have communication skills. They know I know the technology. No, I'm not out there fixing tools as they break offshore. Something breaks on me, I'm calling back to the shop, asking the electronic technician, send another one, because I'm, that's just not my thing. I was never, ever just that kid that did all the mechanics and all the electronics. I could run a tool, I could follow it, I could read a book, right? But I'm not going to build it. So that was my first time seeing people really being upset about me getting this promotion, and without them understanding that, this was a tough job for me, but I went the extra mile. So I did sales, I did recruiting. When I did recruiting, I looked up and I said, I'm a recruiting manager. I'm traveling all over the USA, going to all the top engineering schools, hiring kids, and we don't have a relationship with NSBE. We don't have a relationship with SHIP. So forming those relationships and then saying, you know what, I'm going to hire one more recruiter to work for me, and they're going to handle engineering schools that are at HBCUs. I'm hiring a diversity engineer. I'm working with minority engineering. So there are things that once you grow and once people trust you, that you get to implement, to strategize, to make sure that you are, as April talked about, giving back to your community, making a way for your community. And so I worked in recruiting for years, and then I worked as a global sales trainer, because we'd grown from 25,000 people when I first started in '87, and Schlumberger started growing really fast. We went up to about 125,000 employees, and we hire a lot of engineers, and they don't know how to talk to clients. So I got to go teach engineers in China and Australia and Latin America and Russia, all over the world, versatile skills, how to relate to people, how to engage people, and how to sell. So after that, I decided I'm going to have a family. I looked up and I was closing in on 40, and I didn't have a husband and didn't have a baby. So I said, man, I need to go get some of those, right? And so I did take my career, and this is the point where I said, you just can't have it all. Do I want to be the CEO or do I want to be a mom? And so I came pretty close to having it all, but I decided I'm going to scale back a little bit and cut out some of the global travel and become a mom. So I did that. I didn't take time off, but I took positions that wouldn't have me away from home so much. Still got to work in HR, worked in training and development, and I ended up with a position in, I started handling Houston social responsibility. So this is right up my alley, because I was already serving on boards, and now I get to go back in the Sunnyside and work with the Astros and completely redo the Sunnyside Park, right? And I get to give to the Girl Scouts, and I get to look at our partnership with Junior Achievement. So I get to do Houston stuff. And then after a couple of years, I took on national-wide programming. And for the last 4 years of my career, I was global director of ESG. So going into villages in Africa, going into places in Ecuador, making sure that STEM and engineering was being promoted, just doing teacher training so that we can build our own pipeline of engineers and work in the community. And that's kind of what I was about. I serve on lots of boards. I've served on Space Center Houston board, so it's very exciting to be there. You've got the huge, oh gosh, I just lost my word. The outside front of Space Center Houston now is the large missile ship. And just being there when we implemented a lot of great things. I'm on Theater Under the Stars board. I'm the president. I'm on the board of the Petroleum Club. On the board of a early college or a ESTEM charter school. I also am on the board of the Children's Museum, which is all about STEM. And so I've written 2 books. And you can see where my passions are. My passions are on STEM and getting kids to know that you don't have to be the smartest to be an engineer. You just have to work hard to be an engineer. You have to work really hard to be an engineer. So one of my books is a children's book. When I grow up, I want to be an engineer. It's been translated into 4 different languages. There's been 150,000 copies of it. Circulated all throughout the globe. My first book was actually For Sister, the Guide for Professional Black Women. And the reason I wrote that book is because I was looking for that book. And when I say that, I came from a very blue collar family. And as I started matriculating and moving through corporate America, there's just some things that just didn't happen in my house. I just didn't know how to engage or network or how to handle situations that would help me to get promoted. And so I couldn't find the book. And so I started interviewing Black women who had done it, and I wrote the book. And that's what engineering is about. That's what success is about, finding solutions. I just found this book and I got on I wrote this book, I got on a speaker circuit and started speaking at a lot of different conferences at the time and selling a book that tells young African Americans how to be successful in corporate America. And it's For Sisters, a Guide for Professional Black Women, but it's just best practices, lessons learned of all of these women. So just being able to work in the community, give back to the community. And now, after a month of retirement and in the middle of COVID and Valerie, I'm dying to be around people and friends and even work. I'm taking this as a break to kind of recalibrate, because I'm still young. I probably won't be retired forever, but how can I continue to work in the community? How can I continue to work in education? I didn't mention for 8 years of my life I spent on Houston Independent School District. I was a board trustee. And so really got interested in education then, went and got my master's in education technology after spending those 2 terms on the board. And is it in working at the university level? Is it teaching 7th grade Algebra 1? I don't know what the next step is, but I do know that it will be finding solutions for my community. I do know it will be working in the community and working to make sure that children see the potential and the possibilities and understand the keys to success. So with that, April, I will turn it back over to you. And once again, thank you so much for all of these fabulous speakers. It's really been enlightening already this morning.
So April, before you go, Paula, I need to purchase both those books from you.
I will definitely get the When I Grow Up book. Yes. Is we give it away. It's okay. Sponsored by Schlumberger, but I will get you another copy of the For Sister book also. But anyone can ask. The Girl Scouts give it away. That's why it's 150,000 copies have been on. All of the HISD gives it away. Fort Bend ISD gives it away. So if our partners, we just donate the book so that more and more kids. One of the things I didn't mention, my shining star, I woke up 5 years ago and said, our kids are not in computer science and coding. So I have over 80 computer science and coding clubs throughout the nation, with about 30 of them being in HISD and Fort Bend ISD, but throughout the nation and throughout the globe. I have some in Ecuador, some in Mexico City. And so making sure kids are exposed to technology, and that everybody's not going to be a computer science, frankly, and everybody won't be an engineer, but you should not be one because you didn't have any exposure or experience in those around those options.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. First of all, congratulations on your not retirement, because I can tell that you are not through and you have so much more to give and pour. But congratulations on all of the years of work that you've done this far. And I just can't wait to see what comes next for you. I think that that story was just the beginning for you. So you guys, it's time now to get to the most important participants of today, which are the students who have the questions for you. This has already been so enlightening for me. I can't even imagine everything the students have received and how they are processing just the gift of your story that you've given today. So what we're going to do, I'm going to introduce each student, and the question will be directed to a specific person on the panel. Some of our students have to go soon, so we want you to give a very good, in-depth response, but then give us the opportunity to try to get to all of the students within our time frame, if you don't mind. So we are going to start with Cree. So we've got Cree Dickerson from Dulles High School. Cree, I know you have a question for Mewael Ghebremichael. Are you ready with your question, Cree?
Yes.
Take it away.
Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your stories. And so my question is, what challenges have you faced while trying to start your business as a Black business owner?
So that's a great question. It's if I had more time, I could tell you all of the challenges that I faced. It's been a quite interesting road to navigate through the banking world. I would say that a couple of things. Number one, when you're trying to, especially in the mortgage banking world, you're trying to get warehouse banks, which is a facility we use to basically we get the money from them, we extend that money to a consumer or a borrower, and so at a high level that just kind of rotates back and forth, right? So in order to get a warehouse bank, I walk into a room to sit down and negotiate with the bank, it's nothing overt and says, hey, we're not going to do it because you're Black, right? But you can tell, there's some things that you have to navigate through and you have to talk with. So then I have to go back and build relationships and then, kind of going back and forth. So there was challenges in our growth period because, until we were able to kind of solidify our name in the Houston area, then you could tell there was challenges there. That's probably, I would say, the primary challenge. But I would say in addition to that, two big things. Number one, and I don't know necessarily because it's not necessarily because of being Black, but Hurricane Harvey was a big challenge for us, and I think that during this COVID time, I think the Hurricane Harvey, especially the folks in Houston, have been able to, we prepared ourselves, technology-wise, and we gave everyone Microsoft Teams and stuff like that back in that time, which kind of prepared us for this COVID piece. But I would say going through this COVID area has probably been the biggest challenge. Today we have about 500 employees. I have 500 employees that work for me, so I have to make sure that they have their benefits, and I'm not trying to lay people off. I want everyone to have their salaries and making sure that they they still have their life. So there is that looming challenge that's kind of as a business owner, when I go home and go to sleep, it's hard for me to go to sleep and say, okay, what challenges are we facing today? I don't want to have people lay people off, and I'm happy to say we haven't laid anyone off. So it's been a great time. Not a great time, but a good time to be able to put ourselves in a position to be able to handle a time like this, I guess you would say. And then the last thing I would say is, the part about, I was young when I was 32 when I first started the bank. So I walk into a mortgage banking conference. So not only am I would say 99% of the people do not look like me, are not Black, but I'm also 31, and you're talking about, old white men. That's basically what it is. Old white men, 55 and up. And I had to, kind of elbow my way into that environment. And some folks were very helpful. I got to pick some people's brains and was able to gain some knowledge from them. But at the same time, I could tell that, there was, you get a couple of looks and, who is this guy? They start to ask me, basically, why am I in this room? And till I give them a business card, then we start to, kind of engage a little bit. So I think, the other challenge was me being young at the time. I think there was definitely some challenges in doing that, in securing banking relationships and trying to build. So long-winded version of the story, but that's, I would say, the toughest challenges that we've had to face so far. At least I've had to face.
Thank you, Mewael, so much for answering that question for Cree. Now, the next question is also directed for you, Mewael, so stay ready. This question is coming from Jaylee Jackson. Jaylee attends Early College High School. Jaylee, are you ready with your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for everybody, like, just telling y'all story. It's really inspiring. And my question to you is, at what age and moment did you know that you wanted to be a business owner?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I would say, you know, for me it was kind of the evolution of you know, I was in the mortgage banking industry. If you kind of go back to my story, I was in the subprime industry, and then, you know, I realized, you know, that really wasn't the best fit, and then ended up becoming kind of a franchisee, if you will. That moment in time, I started to say, once we got our handle in that, I said, you know what, this is where I feel like there's a way. I need to start looking at a way to become the actual bank. And I think that was, so I would still say I was an entrepreneur or a business owner at that time, and owning a franchise, so to speak, but I wasn't the actual corporate bank. I wasn't the big umbrella. So, I'll probably say about, 27, 28 years old, there was a moment in time where I was at a crossroads where, when during the credit crisis, where I was laid off and I didn't know what to do. I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna give this one more shot. If not, I'm gonna go be an attorney. I was gonna go to law school. It ended up being successful for me in my journey. And then that's when I said, okay, you know what? I think I can dig in a little bit more here, and the rest has been history. So, I think it was, probably about 28 years old. But I will say a defining moment was, when I was at 25, 26. It was, either I'm gonna go to law school, or I'm gonna give this thing another try. And that was, I think, from college, 18 to 22, you probably have about 3 years after college where people still kind of say, oh, he's still a kid and blah, blah, blah. But right about that 25-year-old mark, that's when, you got to really kind of take things a little bit seriously. At least for me, that's when I said, okay, I need to do things a little bit differently. And that was kind of I think the crossroads or the fork in the road for me. So that's about the time when I realized it.
That sounds about right, Mewael. Yeah, you don't know what you want to do for sure when you're 17, 18, even graduating college. But yeah, about mid-20s was about it for me too. So thank you, Mewael. All right, so I've got a question coming from Landon Yarber, who attends Hightower High School. This question is for Mr. Marcus Davis. Are you ready, Landon?
Landon.
Landon, are you here?
While Landon's getting ready, let me do this. Right, I want to kind of answer a couple of the things that were addressed to the previous two questions, right? Which was one, challenges as an African American being in business, and starting the business. Two things that I recognize. One, which is not just exclusive to African Americans, but it is what's the saying, when America gets a cold, a black man gets the flu. Access to capital is a problem for entrepreneurs, but it is also a greater problem for people of color. And where I realized that is in talking to a number of people who were in business, asking them how did they get started. It's a funny story, because the first place I went for money was, of course, my parents. And I asked my dad if he had any money. And he said, I don't have any money. And so when I went to talk to other entrepreneurs about them being in business, how did you get started? And I heard either my daddy loaned me the money, or my daddy's friend, or my daddy works at this bank. My dad had to, my dad. So I said, Dad, you sure you ain't got no money? Because these other people saying that's how this supposed to work. But those other people didn't look like me, right? So that's one. Two, access to experience, right? If you think about it, the reality of it is Black folks haven't been doing business in this nation outside of Jim Crow for very long, right? Last 50, 60 years that we've been doing real business in this nation. So especially when you have that disconnect between the Black community building its own community through entrepreneurship, and then that breakaway from that into corporate America, and moving away from our entrepreneurship. So we have not been doing business in this nation on a substantive level that long. So getting that knowledge, that experience from entrepreneurs, not saying that they weren't there, but you had to look high and low in order to find them. Reading stories about the Hobart Taylors and the Mac Hannas and people like that were encouraging, were inspiring. But again, having that experience, that on-hand experience, that's definitely a deficit. So is he ready now?
Yes. So Landon we couldn't hear him talk, so he's just rejoining us again.
Okay.
So he should be joining us any minute because he was having tech issues.
Okay.
Hey, Marcus, this is Mewael. Pleasure to meet you also virtually.
Go ahead. We're losing you. See, that's the UT part of you, right? That's I need you to flip over to your Texas Southern roots, and we'll be able to see. Look, UT freezes up, right?
I have to come to Mewael's. I have to come to his defense. He's my fellow Longhorn.
Yeah, and my husband did an MBA at UT, so I'm all about the Longhorns too. But okay, I think we have Landon back on. April, Landon, can you hear us? I just want to make sure you're on before I turn the camera on.
Yes, ma'am. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Can we see your beautiful face as well? Nice, love it. Okay, I'm going to turn my camera off now.
Got you. Okay. Thank you, Miss Tanya. Thank you, Jay Company, for allowing me to be here today. It's very empowering to see people of color prosper in the way that you all have. So thank you for sharing your stories with us. Mr. Davis actually answered my question, which was, what have you found to be the most advantageous resource in becoming a Black entrepreneur or a Black business leader in the Houston area? So thank you.
Say it again. What's been most advantageous about being an African American business owner?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. What is the most advantageous resource in becoming a Black entrepreneur or a Black business leader in the Houston area?
Obviously the African American community. Obviously a rich and noble heritage of being an African American. I want to share something real quick, because I noticed, one of the things that I read, and a lot of times a question is posed where it says the ability to succeed in spite of being Black. And I got to turn that around a little bit. I want to say that success as a result of being Black is what we should be talking about. Dr. King had a saying, "There go great people of Black complexion and fleecy lock," and talked about us taking our place in history because of our strength. We're talking about people who broke through chains. I'm a badass dude because of my rich heritage. I'm not able to do it because I'm Black. What are my barriers? Yeah, there are barriers. But the people that got out of chains, the people that fought through Jim Crow, those are some bad summer guns. And so because I have that rich heritage, then I know how big, bold, and bad I could be. So the melanin is the advantage.
Yes.
The advantage. I don't know no other way to put it, baby. And we got soul, we got culture. We have it, right? We are, I named our restaurant Culture because we are the fabric of culture in this nation, through music, through art, through food, you name it. There's not a place on this soil in these United States that African Americans have not been the leader in culture. We lead the food industry. It was our great grandmothers who defined what Southern flavor is. We lead the music industry. We lead the art industry. We are cultural leaders. So don't get me started. I'm just, I'm telling you, I'm James Brown, black and proud, baby.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much, Mr. Davis. All right. Now we're going back to Cree. Cree, you've got a question that is going to be for Mr. Elijah Williams. Are you ready, Cree?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so Mr. Williams, my question is, as a Black business owner, how do you promote your business to other people to achieve success?
Yeah, so thank you, Cree. I appreciate the question, and so I'll tackle it from a couple of different ways. And so one, I want to more so just talk about achieving success in general, and for me, I think that comes with a couple of different elements, and some of that's been hit in sort of the responses and answers to the first questions. But I think what's important is staying grounded. And whatever that means for you. For me, that means keeping God first in my life. I think it's important to keep people around you who have your best interest in mind, right? People who will help you to keep the noise out. Remember, help you keep focused on what you're working to achieve. But at the same time, building relationships with people that can help you, they can support you on your journey as a business owner. So, I think some of these things go without being said, such as hard work, consistency in this whole thing, having initiative, doing what other people are not willing to do. And I think whether that's as an entrepreneur, in a corporate space, or just in life, I think there is a winning formula around simply doing what other people are not willing to do, meaning willing to stay later on the job, go the extra mile, take on assignments that people just won't take on. I think additionally with that comes sort of patience, right? Building a business, I think it's hard work. And I think any of the folks who have started a business, ran a business, whether successful, unsuccessful, there's an amount of patience and commitment that comes with that, being in it for the long run. Of course, there's challenges with starting a business. You heard Marcus talk about access to capital, which is one of the I would say it's the number one hindrance to Black businesses, minority-owned businesses, along with some of the other challenges of just maybe not having been exposed to entrepreneurship and how to run a business and things of that nature. But I consistent with what you heard Marcus share, and I think consistent with what I shared earlier in sort of my opening remarks, that I think it's important to remember, who you are, and that you're rooted in great people, that your experiences in life are enough, and that you just have to really keep at it. So that's sort of my thoughts around achieving success. I think just in general, in terms of promoting your business, I think I'm a huge fan of sort of writing things down as well. I think I heard one of the earlier presenters mention that. And so if there's a business, I'm assuming we've already got through sort of the business plan and things of that nature. But if you are a business owner and you're really looking to tell your story, market your product, market your service, I absolutely think you have to write it out. I think you have to know who you're trying to sell to. You have to know who might be interested in your product. You have to know the value of your product or service. You have to know who you're targeting. And then outside of that, you have to by far use all of your resources, whether it's family, church, social media, or quite frankly, just hitting the street in sort of the old-fashioned way of grinding it. I don't know if it's relevant these days in terms of, you used to hear sort of singers and rappers talk about how they would sell tapes and CDs out of the trunk of their car. Maybe you're selling it on Instagram or Facebook. I don't know how it works, but nonetheless, I think at the end of the day, it's all about having a plan. It's all about knowing what you're selling, and knowing how to sort of tell that story and connect the buyer to your product and service that you're offering.
Thank you, Elijah, for that very thorough answer. Kree, I hope that was helpful to you. I'm sure it was. All right, so we're going to go over to our next student. Abdul Callan attends George Ranch High School. You've got a question for Valerie Madison. Abdul, are you ready?
I am ready. Thank you all for your empowering stories. And my question is, how can we provide equal access to leadership and governance for persons of color?
And thank you for that question. I'm glad you asking me that one. So I think with that, it's just the ability that we all have to share resources, as well as our stories. Having events such as this is how we can make that happen. And I think whenever people of color get into higher level positions, they have to share those lessons. How do they make it work, and how are they giving back to have opportunities where it provides seats at the table? And it could look like just an event such as this. And what I love about my role within BAM, Blacks at Microsoft, is that we have like, it's our mission to do that, to create those spaces where people of color has those resources, they have that information so they can do it. Some people think of it being as like a crab in a bucket syndrome, where we get to the top and you don't want to reach back down to help them, but that hasn't been it. And I think now, seeing so many injustices being played on TV, on social media, us being in the house, having to sit down, think, and watch, people aren't taking that anymore. And it starts from there. And I'm glad that companies are now seeing it. I know some people may think that it's a trend, but now more than ever, we're holding people accountable to share that, to give us those seats that we work hard for. Just to have an equal playing field. As a people, we've been held back for so long, and we feel like we're catching up. But like what Marcus said, that's what helps us. That's what helps me in the role that I have now, is my contacts created from Black circles that I'm in, being at a Black school, being proud to be Black, and that's what gives me that passion to help those that look like me. Not necessarily saying I'm not helping those that do not, but that's why it's like my purpose to do that. And a lot of us, we take on that when we move up in life, whether it's having a business that's able to be in multiple places throughout the city, where every Saturday I see a line whenever we're able to be outside the Breakfast Club. And then just whenever we're getting those positions to be able to give back, it's kind of our a responsibility to do that. And that's how we're able to help all those people. And I'm just excited to be able to be in a position right now to do that and encourage other people to do it, because some may not even know what that looks like, because a lot of African Americans, we're first generations, so we don't have that knowledge of that's how it works. That's how they've been doing it. That's how you'll see someone's nephew being over a company that has no experience at all, but just that connection. And Black people are now seeing that that's how it gets done. That's how we have to do it, and that's how we do that. So passing those gems along, sharing what we can offer when we get in those high positions, bringing people up with us, that's how we'll do that. And companies are now following those trends and having employee resource groups for particular demographics and areas so that they can do that as well. And I'll just say, hold them accountable too for those things.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Valerie, for answering that question. All right. We are going back to Landon. Landon, you've got a question now for Mr. Curtis Franklin. Landon attends Penn. Oh, no, Landon, what high school are you from, Landon?
Hightower High School.
Ah, you're Hightower High School. That's right. All right. Are you ready, Landon, with your question for Mr. Curtis Franklin?
Yes, ma'am. So my question is, with racial injustice and incidents of police brutality at the forefront of all news outlets, what is your company's official stance on racial equality in the workplace?
All right, Landon, before I give you my official answer, Marcus got us all inspired. He was talking about a poem that Dr. King often quotes. It still resonates in my head. It goes, fleecy locks and black complexion cannot forfeit nature's claim. Skin may differ, but affection dwells in black and white the same. If I were so tall as to reach the poles or to grasp the ocean at a span, I must be measured by my soul. The mind is the standard of the man. So thanks for that, Marcus.
Preach.
So Landon, much favor to you. Your question is most relevant and is framed appropriately because it addresses how our company or any company's core value system is. And the way you do that is by wanting to know what's their official stance. And asking the official stance on racial equality in the workplace, our CEO, Greg Garland, communicated to 14,000 plus Phillips 66 employees, part of living our values is doing our part to address and alleviate racial and ethnic tensions that exist across the country. And he says there's no place for racism or its vestiges at Phillips 66, nor the communities where we work and live, nor any community across the country. So Landon, if you think about it, Phillips 66 or any company is built on values. Whether they publicly state it or not, you can tell by the actions and the treatment that it has for its employees and how it treats their customers. All of these things manifest. And I know you've heard from your parents or your grandparents, by their fruits you shall know them. So I'll say by their fruits, by their demonstrated behavior, you will know their values. So one thing for us, after the callous, senseless murder of George Floyd, and then the energized, diverse masses engaged in inspirational, peaceful protests, the Black Employee Network here, along with the other 8 employee research groups, had a united moment of silence in honor of his life and Ahmaud Arbery's and Breonna Taylor's and the countless others that suffered from the hands of police brutality. So this webcast was available for viewing at every location in our company. Our BEN executive sponsor is Tim Roberts. He's the executive vice president of Midstream. And Sonia Reed, who's the senior vice president of human resources and corporate communications, actually hosted the first ever candid conversation about race with African Americans, select African Americans from headquarters in Houston and from other regions and refineries around the country. And I thought that was, in my years, 4 decades, that nothing even comparable had ever happened before. And so when you look at our company's commitment to inclusion and diversity, and they always start off with inclusion, because you can talk about diversity all you want, but if you haven't included people of color into your company, then what diversity are you talking about? A difference of opinion? That would be it. So you have to look at those things, look at those actions. And we see in the activities of the other non-employee research groups in their recruitment efforts, they're engaged in that. Our community investment programs, we do those things. We build and encourage STEM curriculums and scholarship opportunities. And you see this every day in the diversity of perspectives. I just recently, in fact, 2 days ago, spoke to the new hire group. There were 14 new hires, 4 of which were, well, it was really a diverse group, but for me, 4 of them were African Americans. Another graduate from Howard University who's going to start working for us in commercial. So I mentioned, we have that network. I talked about Brooke Bobbitt and then Latrice Gouch Williams, who also co-chairs that. In fact, she was originally the chair. So I work with them daily. In fact, you get so close, you build those networks. I actually train Latrice and her husband in boxing. That's how close I've gotten with them. But it just shows you, once you have those people, if your company's committed and they go out and recruit, that's how you know what's going on. And then recently, we talked about STEM earlier, but we actually became a supporter of the NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers. We took it to a new level because we donated $50,000 so that we can actually become a board of the corporate affiliates. So when you look at things like that, that's how you know what your company's position is. And we partner with other companies like the Council of Minority Engineers. So there are a lot of things that go on at this company that we know is proactive and really showing how they feel about minorities in general and Blacks in particular. That's all I have for you.
And that was more than enough. Thank you so much, Mr. Franklin, for answering that question. So our next student participant is Dina Azwike, who attends George Ranch High School. And Dina, you've got a question for Nashon Mitchell. Are you ready with your question, Dina?
Yes, I am. Thank you everyone for just the experience and your stories and all the wisdom. And so my question is, does race consciousness affect your work, and how can students like us try not to let that affect us as we become working adults in society?
Hey, Dina, thanks for that. Can everyone hear me? Because I switched from my phone to the computer.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I thought about your question and just thinking, I think absolutely the question is yes, it impacts us, but it's to what extent? So does it negatively impact me in my workplace? I would have to say, no, it doesn't. I haven't experienced it, not consciously. So maybe there's that unconscious bias that has been, so people are starting to talk about it. So maybe there is unconscious bias within people within the workplace that is involving my race, but it hasn't been direct to me, and maybe they haven't known it. I did experience at a time where I was trying to get into people leadership, and I kept asking, well, every time you have something special, when you need something to get done, then I'm the person. But when I'm trying to switch it over, they would just say, not now, not right now. Let's give it some time. I always wondered if that was that race consciousness that you're asking about, but no one would ever say it to me. So the only thing that I had to do was just get that passion and that belief that Marcus was speaking to earlier, and just saying, I am a queen. I know this work. No one knows it like I know it. And they can't say that anybody can do this job better than me. So when the time comes, I'm just going to do the best that I can do. And I'm going to show them that I am her, and that, there's no other choice but me. That was my stance. There is no other choice. They couldn't put it on paper and say that no one else was better for that role than me. And so that was my mindset. And so I just said, okay, not now. You're not telling me when. So I'm just going to show you that now is the time. And that's what I've done. But then on the flip side, because you're facing with this unconscious bias and no one's telling you and being direct, but there is the positive race consciousness that I have started to see especially with USAA. They're very much a socially and racial conscious company, and they have a positive consciousness about race. So I was just sitting in a meeting one day with the CEO, and I had no idea that this was going to come up. But they put up on the board, and Valerie spoke to it earlier. It's leadership holding themselves accountable for why they don't have Black executives in their company. So it came up, and they looked at the number, and the numbers were bad. USA's Black executive numbers are low. But the CEO, he just started talking. He's like, this is bad. He's like, we have to do better. And he's talking to his entire EC that are sitting at the table. And he just starts drilling into them that they have to do better. They need to go out and they need to recruit. They need to look at the schools that they're recruiting at. And that was a pivotal moment for me to know that he was holding them accountable. He was holding himself accountable. But that's that race consciousness that's positive. That's race consciousness isn't always a negative. So it was positive to know, because then shortly after that, this year, they spurred a program that was specific to recruiting at HBCUs. Now, I was shocked because it's a military company. Most of their recruiting goes to military. All of our members are mostly military people. And they just went out. They said, okay, we're going recruiting just at HBCUs locally here in Texas, because that's where our campus is. And they brought in students, and they just said, we have to change how we recruit. We can't only recruit at these schools, because if you have to look at the demographics that are coming out of those schools, then what are you going to get? So if you want to improve your numbers, you have to go to where the numbers are larger. And so I found that it's just, you have to look at it in both ways. It's race consciousness doesn't always hurt you, but it can help with what you do and what you do with it. So if you know that you're in a company that they're looking for Black executives, they're looking to improve your numbers, it's about who you know. It's about doing your job and just being the best that you can be and doing what you're doing, and not trying to just hope that somebody's going to see you. But it's also getting in the rooms, making those relationships. And for me, I had one AVP saying, no, it's not your time. And then I just developed another relationship with the new AVP, and she just changed. She was like, oh, no, it's been your time. I don't know why she said it's not your time. So it could have been that unconscious bias of that other AVP. It had nothing to do with me, but you just got to keep moving and keep pushing and know that who you are and just embrace it. Hope that. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nashon, for that amazing answer to the question. Okay, Ronald Smith. Ronald attends Lamar High School. You have a question for Miss Paula Harris. Are you ready, Ronald? Can you hear me, Ronald? Are you ready with your question?
I wonder if he's on mute.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yes.
Tanya or Courtney, do you want to reach out to Ronald? And I'm
Yes.
going to go on to the next participant, okay?
Okay, I'm doing that now.
Thank you. Okay, Chubi Uchenna, you attend George Ranch High School. There's a question directed to Mr. Marcus Davis from Chubi. Are you ready, Chubi?
Yes, ma'am, I am. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Chuby. I can hear you.
Oh, okay, all right. First off, I just want to say thank you to the panel for taking time out today to answer all our questions. So my question for Mr. Davis is, when you were first starting your business, was there ever a moment where you felt that you wouldn't be successful? And if so, how did you overcome that?
Wow. So I want to answer that in two part, right? Because the question states, when we first started in the business, but I want to answer in the phase of trying to open the business, right? So, of course, when I thought about this idea, I moved forward, fully faithful, right? Believing wholeheartedly in what I had the ability to do, which I have to tell you is extremely important. I mentioned earlier about the business plan and writing it down and all that kind of good stuff. There are a couple of principles that I like to share with entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs. One is vision, seeing what it is that that you want to do, where you want to go, what you want to be. And then the second one is faith, the ability to believe wholeheartedly, unwavering faith in the vision that you see. All right. And I had that, and it sustained me for a good period of time. But yes, there was a point in time where I had been turned down by about 7 different banks, where I had been turned down by about 8 or 9 different investment groups. And that was discouraging. So discouraging that I came home and I took that business plan, I threw it in the trash. And the next day, there was a message that was delivered to me. I heard someone speak and they said, what the Creator has for you is for you. And that revived my soul, right? And I went home and I dug that business plan out of the trash and wiped the mustard and mayonnaise off of it, and got back to work. That was a joke, right? And not the mustard and mayonnaise, but that was a pivotal moment for me, and it reminded me of it's something that I share with folks all the time: the ability to see what it is that you want to be, where you want to go, and the ability to believe wholeheartedly in what it is that you want to do, where you want to go. Um, Seeing the picture is one thing, and here's one thing that laid upon me is there are going to be days and times. And this is why I encourage people to see it clearly and to believe wholeheartedly in what you see, because there's going to be days and times where that's the only thing that you will have to sustain you. Because there'll be so many other people that won't. There'll be so many other people that either don't believe in what you're saying or will come against what you're trying to do, and you have to just stand flat-footed and firm in what it is that you're doing. Second part, as I move through my business, again, I believe in faith. I believe it is necessary to believe, right? And so I moved through the business not believing I wouldn't be successful. I believed wholeheartedly that I would be successful. People ask me all the time when uh, it's a Saturday morning, they're inside the restaurant, and the line's out the door around the corner, and they'll say, "Hey, did you ever think that this would?" And I've got to a point now where I stop them. I say, "Yes, I knew this would happen. I believed wholeheartedly it would happen. I saw you here sitting in this seat before you saw yourself sitting in this seat." And so that's the level of faith that I encourage folks to have. Now, was there ever a point in business where it was so tough that it looked like it was gloomy? Hell yes. I got my ass whooped in 2007 and 8. We're talking about the pandemic right now, but I got my MBA in 2008, right? That's when the housing market crashed. That's when the price of food skyrocketed. That's when the cost of doing business just escalated. And it was a very challenging time because, everybody was losing their job. Gas was sky high. So not only were people not eating, people who came to eat, they would only eat a small portion of what they, spend a small portion of what they would normally spend because they just took them $100 to fill up the gas tank, right? So it was an incredibly challenging time. And there was some long, and when I say I got my MBA, this is when I really learned more about my business, right? And so there were a lot of long nights. And I am fortunate and proud to say that one of the ways that I was able to make it through that time was through the words and the actions of a brother by the name of King Crusoe. You might not know that name, but you got me. You might not know that name, but French's Chicken uh, is owned by the Crusoe family, and King Crusoe, who inherited the business from his father, was a mentor of mine. And I picked up the phone, I gave him a call, he answered, he came, he helped me wipe the snot, the tears, all of that good stuff. And so I said that to say, the reason I wanted to use that one because I said earlier how we don't have access to experience, but that was one of the times where I had access to experience. And, had it not been for Daddy Crusoe back in the day starting French's, while I was at Texas Southern seeing French's and being inspired, right? And had it not been for King Crusoe, who was influential in my life while I've been in business, you know, I don't know where we'd be today. So I just wanted to put that out there about why it's important that we're in business and that we're building business by building community. Oh, also, Chrisana, I'm sorry, I got to say this. Chrisana, you asked a question earlier, and I don't want to step on Elijah's toes. I'm son of a Black Baptist preacher, so I talk too much. You asked how you asked how is it that you promote your business to other people or to the general market? The answer is real simple. Be great. Be absolutely excellent at what you do. If you're absolutely great and excellent at what you do, everybody will come. Everybody will want to participate. Everybody will want a part of it. The quality product, quality service, and consistency, I believe, are the keys to business. And if you do those things, any and everybody will come. They say word of mouth is the best form of advertising. If you have a great product, they're gonna come. Doesn't matter what their ethnicity is, doesn't matter the measure of their melanin, they'll be there.
Thank you, Marcus, once again for your wisdom. For your wisdom. Okay, did we get Ronald?
We are in the process of him logging back in. So if you want to go on with Kyle, that'd be great.
Yes. Okay, Kyle, it's on you. Kyle Holiday from Travis High School. Your question is actually directed to everyone on the panel. So take it away, Kyle.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here and thank you for your stories. They were very inspirational. And so my question was, in what ways do Black business owners or entrepreneurs collaborate and support each other, especially during a time like right now when stuff can be very hard with the pandemic going on?
Who's that to?
That question is open to everyone on the panel. So if we could have maybe two of you jump on, if there's something you want to share in response to Kyle's question, that would be awesome.
Well, Kyle, I'll jump in and I'll give you a little example. On the 13th of March is when it was announced that everybody, all restaurants and bars got to shut down. And I would probably say on the 14th or 15th of March, and I'm just sharing this, on the 14th or 15th of March, I knew how I felt about having my business reduced to 25%, right? Because we could only do to-go orders, and that's only 25% of my business. I had to shut my bar down. I had to, reduce my restaurants to, 25% of the business. So I know how I felt. So I just started a text with about 10 different restaurant and bar owners, and just shooting out words of hey guys, we're gonna make it through this. We're gonna fight. We're gonna push through. We're gonna work. And these are people that people we would probably see as, oh, aren't they competitors to you? No, we were all in this together. So we sent words of encouragement to, of course, in the marketplace we're competing. On IG we may be competing, on Facebook you may see competing ads or what have you, trying to get people. But in the backgrounds, we I had one of my colleagues who has a business that serves products that I serve, that's close to my business. He sent a text saying, "Hey, I'm at Restaurant Depot. If anybody needs anything, let me know." And I jokingly listed out 3 or 4 different things that I needed. He showed up at my back door. So, you know, that's just an example of how we, and the story that I told before about Mr. Crusoe is another example.
Absolutely. Do we have any other panelists who want to jump in on that? Ways Black business owners and entrepreneurs collaborate and support each other?
I want to just follow up on what Marcus, because my father is Curtis Franklin Sr. He used to own Universal Ford, and he also owned Premier Pontiac. But the Crusoes would buy cars for him all the time, and they would always patronize each other. So that's the part that I remember, and that's how you have to make it work. That the Black business owners have to also patronize each other. So I think that goes a long way.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. I just mentioned, us collaborating in the background. In the midst of having our business reduced to 25%, we still made it a point that we would go, because I knew other restaurants were only doing 25%. So we took out a few pennies that we were scraping together, and we still went and bought food from other restaurants because we knew that it was necessary. So I mean, to me, it was a beautiful thing to see. It was absolutely marvelous. I just made a post about, we ate Sparkle Burger last week, and I think today for lunch we're gonna probably have Kraft Burger or something. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. And by the way, we listened to you on Sunday, Marcus.
That's greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much, Kyle. I hope that was helpful to you. Thank you so much for jumping in on that, panelist. I believe we have Ronald. This will be the last question from our students. Ronald Smith attends Lamar High School. And your question, Ronald, is directed to Miss Paula Harris. Are you ready?
1 second. Okay, so also good morning, but my question stems from, I believe that you can't succeed unless you fail. So my question is, what failures did you face? What did you learn from them? And how did it help you grow?
So, Ronald, this is such an important question. As we've all, and I'll be brief because I know we are at the end here, but as you've heard our resumes and you've heard all this advice, it's really hard for you, especially as a young person, to believe this maybe, but you're exactly right. We've made a lot of mistakes. We've made a lot of errors. Even when I talked about my book, it's called a lot of lessons learned, things that I did wrong as you help teach others. And so I'm going to put it, there are multiple, hundreds probably, but I'm going to condense it down to 3. And these are 3 that I think that you as young people can relate to. Elijah talked earlier about you have to do what other people don't want to do. I'm going to take that even a little bit further. You have to do what you don't want to do. Your ability to do things that you don't feel like doing is directly related to your success. So I would say, as a young engineer, as a new engineer, I'm like, well, they aren't doing it either. Well, they aren't going the extra mile. And so I can't do what they do. And my ability to do things that I don't want to do was directly correlated to my ability to climb and move up and be successful. Case in point, as a high school junior or senior, you may say, you know what, I'm just going to take regular classes. I don't feel like this extra homework. I don't want AP. I don't want to take on the leadership. What if I'm the president of student council, or if I get on this organization, there's all these extra meetings. I don't feel like that. Your ability to do things that you don't feel like doing and to grow that muscle because there's so much fun and good and yay and advantages that you get out of working hard, owning your own business, moving up the corporate ladder. But the part that people don't see, when no one else is there and you're doing things that even you don't, not only will no one else do it, you don't feel like doing it. This is not what I'm in the mood to do. And your ability to grow that muscle is really big. Your ability to understand that to be able to understand, as a high school person, as a young professional, as someone that's retired, it is not important whether people know whether you like them or not. And so my first year, first couple of years, I didn't like him. He didn't like me. I didn't speak in the morning. I don't talk to him. You know, he's rude. He's racist. As long as you demand people respect you and you have hard conversations with them, tough conversations sometimes, but respectfully, where you can go back again and again and say, that's not acceptable, or this is acceptable. Then you get to the point where you have to you can professionally engage. Now, there'll be times where, you know, that becomes very tough, right? Because you feel like it wasn't that I was disrespected, but it's quite obvious this person doesn't like me. And even when I was on the school board, I mentored even young principals, and they were like, my boss just hates me. I promise you, being able to work for, hire someone, engage with people, and get things done with people that you don't care for, because it doesn't matter, is so important. And so you like, you know, you're in high school, I don't like him, he don't like me, and so we both show each other that. Work that muscle. No one needs to know. Who cares? Who cares? Your ability to win the football game, to finish your project, to work on an organization together with people are always going to not like you. There's always going to be people you don't like. Who cares? Move forward, move past it, and be professional. And so many people quit their job, or don't get promoted because they are, you know, showing this dislike or being unprofessional in settings where it's so not necessary. So moving that muscle where these aren't my friends anyway. And so 33 years, there are probably people in my company that says, oh, Paula, she's great. Yeah, she's fine. And they don't really like me, and I really didn't like them, but we have had a great professional relationship. So getting that muscle together. The last one is, there are going to be times that you will not get the credit, you will not get the promotion, you will not get the business because of your race, because of who you are, because someone does not understand you. For sure there will be, but you have to be able, as professionals, as business owners, to understand that everything is not for you. Right? And everything isn't always racist, sexist. Sometimes it just wasn't for you, because I believe what's for you, you will get. I have pushed things, Ronald, pushed it. I came back from having a baby 20 years ago, and I wanted to be a part of this internal MBA program. I just had to be a part of this program. I went to everybody's house. This is racist. This is sexist. Everybody else with my credentials have been part of this program. I want to be part of this program. And so they said, okay, Paula, you can be part of the program. So here's your offer letter. And I said, okay. And so it says, now your next position is in Perth, Australia. You have to go for a month. And I said, no, I don't need the international part. I've been doing a lot of international stuff. I'm good on international stuff. I just had a baby. I need to stay in Houston. They said, oh, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. You have to, part of this, you begged for it. It was racist if we didn't give it to you. You have to go and spend a month with a 6-month-old baby at home in Perth, Australia. And when you get back and in Houston for a month, then you got to go spend another month in Caracas, Venezuela. I shouldn't have ever, I never can look back and say that experience helped me. But what it did was, it was a big sacrifice that I made for the company. And I made plenty. And that's one that I really didn't have to make, really didn't have to do, but that was something that, so really weigh out and understand all of the unintended consequences, the intended consequences, and you pushing for stuff, and that might not even be what the Lord or anybody else has for you. So I would say, Ronald, there are so many more mistakes, failures, things I didn't get that I wanted, or things I didn't get that I deserved. But things that I could have controlled, my ability to get along with folks I don't like, my ability to work hard and do things that no one else wants to do, and my ability to reason and balance what's best for me at the time are things that I learned, I overcame, and you can start flexing those muscles right now in high school.
Thank you.
Miss Paula, we could not have ended the Q&A session any better than that. Thank you so much for just sharing that wisdom. And to all of the panelists, that was our last question, but there was so much gold. This was a gold mine, and a blessing to any and everyone who has the opportunity to either be here live or listen to the recording of this. So thank you so much, students, for your bravery in asking the questions. I want to encourage you to take everything that was shared today, whatever you can remember and walk away with. If you didn't take notes, whatever you can walk away with mentally and do something with that goal that was shared today. And to all of the panelists, thank you so much for sharing your gold, for not hoarding it for yourself. Our stories, our gifts that help others to grow and come up behind us. Listen, guys, we're running a little bit behind schedule. We're going to wrap up in 10 minutes. If I can have you all stick with us for 10 more minutes, we now have a special message from the president of Junior Achievement of Southeast Texas, Mr. Joe Burke. He sends his apologies for not being able to attend this town hall, but wanted to share his organization's response to systemic inequality and inequality. Inequity and inequality. The vision that Junior Achievement has will help build equity through access to quality education. I will now turn it over to Microsoft's Alexis and Marcus to share Mr. Burke's special message.
As our country wrestles with social injustice and unrest, I think the real change is going to happen if we start to create systemic solutions. And I'm therefore very excited because Junior Achievement, I believe, can be a catalyst in that regard. We're launching a new model called 3DE by Junior Achievement this fall at Austin High School. 3DE is a fully supported instructional model that utilizes case methodology to drive student engagement and ultimately academic performance. The mission of 3DE is to really systemically re-engineer high school education to expand economic opportunity for all students. And so we'll target disadvantaged schools, and we do so because sadly they're often overrepresented by students of color. So if we're going to create real change, I believe we're going to have to really find something that can scale. So the model will be launched in 4 different schools in the next 4 years. So we're going to pilot that, and if it proves to be effective, we will look to have 25 schools open in 10 years in Greater Houston. And to me, that represents the systemic change that we need to move this country forward.
Thank you so much for sharing that message from Mr. Burke. The purpose of this was to remind our students, who are our future, that the color of our skin does not determine our destiny. And we want you to understand that success can and will be achieved if you work hard and you believe in yourself. I do believe that message was shared from each and every one of our panelists. Junior Achievement has a certificate for all of our student participants. They will be in contact with you on how you're going to receive that, as well as a little goodie bag for all of the student participants in today's town hall. Now, Valerie, you've got a special announcement for us really quick as we wrap up. Are you ready with that, Valerie?
Yes, I am. Something I love being able to do with my job is giving things away. So Marco, Alexis, and myself are really excited to have worked with y'all today, and we're just very proud of the students and their hard work. So we'll be giving that 5 gifts So you get 5 swag bags with lots of goodies from us here at Microsoft, as well as some gift cards to be able to shop online through our Microsoft store, just to get yourself something to prepare for school starting back. So yeah, very proud of you all and excited to mail you something. So we'll keep it social distancing and send it to you in the mail.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to say my farewells. Thank you all for having me today. I'm going to turn it over to District Director Courtney Aswike from Junior Achievement to end today's town hall. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, April. This session was amazing. I think all of you deserve virtual hand claps. You know, when Tanya and I sat down to plan this event, we wanted to produce an event that was thoughtful and forward-thinking discussions. And so that also featured a wide array of panelists from various industries and was also empowering for all. And I truly believe that we have exceeded our expectation. I do want to say thank you. I know, April, you have said thank you to everyone today, but thank you for being an amazing moderator for today's town hall. Also, thank you to all of our students, Pri, Landon, Chrisana, Abdul, Langston, Kyle, Dina, Ronald, Jay Lee, and Chubi. You all are actually leaders in your own right for different organizations that are academic-based, athletic-based, community service-oriented, in addition to the JA and Company program. And so it is our hope that you leave this town hall feeling empowered and motivated to continue to make the impact that you are making right now in your schools, your communities, and your churches. And thank you so much for asking such thought-provoking and stimulating questions. And also, thank you to our panelists. We could not have done this without you. Thank you, Elijah Williams, Valerie Madison, Curtis Franklin, Marcus Davis, Mewael Ghebremichael, Nashon Mitchell, and Paula Harris for being candid and authentic and passionate in your responses. Your authenticity and your willingness to give up your time is so greatly appreciated. And I know it will permeate in the students' discussion, their decisions, and thought leadership. And finally, thank you to Microsoft, our sponsor, and Alexis and Marcus for making this event a virtual success. Truly from the entire JA team, thank you all so much for bringing this vision that we had to light. And so as Tanya mentioned, the JA Inspire, Empower, and Impact Our Future Town Hall, this is the inaugural year, you know, and we hope to continue to grow this program and to continue to have impactful discussions and continue to make these connections so that we can support each other. And so thank you again for being a part of this event, and I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon.
Okay, real quick before we go, can I?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
Of course.
Well, you know, I can't just let Microsoft be, you know, outdo me as a small business. I am a small business, but I like to give stuff away too. And my wife has her headphones in. I'm in my office. She has her headphones in, and so she don't know I'm giving stuff away, right?
I should actually hear you.
So, for all of the JA members that participated on here today, Creed, Landon, everybody, Chrisana, Chubi, everybody that participated, because you donated 2 hours of your time, dedicated 2 hours of your time, I'm going to donate 2 meals at the Breakfast Club for all of you all that participated on today. All right, I have a list of names, and if I can find a way to find the other people that watched, I think I saw 17. If somebody has a list of them, you know, I'll throw the same thing in for them as well. All right. But I tell you this, guys, the information you got today, man, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. All right.
So, Marcus, before you leave, our chairperson for being Blacks at Microsoft, he's your frat brother, Roger Keynes, told me to tell you hello.
Yeah, Roger,
What's up? He was happy when he saw that we were a part of this, and as well as Leah, I think she's listening from Baker Hughes. He wanted me to give y'all those shout outs.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Marcus. We truly appreciate it.
On behalf of JA, I thank you guys so much for doing this. We really, truly appreciate it.
Thank you. Nicole. Thank you, everyone. Have a great Friday. We're so honored to be a part of this event with all of you. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Take care.
Thank you. Nice meeting you all.